spiritual food for thought.
So in modern Christianity, there seems to be a lot of unbiblical problems, issues, traditions that we're dealing with. And that's why this video here is going to be called The Problem with the Reformation. And even Reformation is a very peculiar thing. Now, I give Martin Luther credit for things like doubting tradition, for things like trying to hold up, the Catholic Church to what Scripture actually says, and for being willing to conclude differently than the religious leaders of his day. Those are good things. We should all be willing to test what man is telling us. We should all be willing to doubt traditions, doubt doctrine, doubt denominational statements and things like that. We should be willing to doubt that, because when we doubt that, we can either prove that it is true, and then we know what we believe and why, and it'll go deeper than, well, they told me to believe it. Or we'll know that it's false, and we'll know what is truth based on what God actually reveals. So the problem is, if you try to reform something, you're going to reach a different end result than if you tried to restore something. I don't think we needed a reformation, we needed a restoration. We didn't need to take the Catholic Church and reform it to try to make it more biblically accurate. What we needed was a restoration of the actual truth of God. So I'm going to give you a brief illustration. Imagine that this is the pure faith that God wanted to hand down to his people. And imagine that this cup here represents the Catholic Church. If you take that pure faith and you preserve it, in a contaminated vessel, what happens when, we'll empty this one, but what happens when you take that pure faith that has been put in that contaminated vessel and you try to reform it? Do you see the problem there, people? Do you see the problem? We didn't need to take the Catholic Church and try to reform it to make it more biblically accurate, to make it more godly, to make it more in line with Scripture. It's much like when we meet the Messiah, when we meet Jesus Christ, when we're living our life. It's not, hey, your life's pretty good, but it'd be even better if you added a little bit of Jesus in there. That's not the gospel message. It's not your life plus Jesus equals greatness and awesomeness and amazingness. No, he is what you abandon your life for. We don't take something that's unbiblical, inaccurate, and contaminated and try to make it more accurate. We abandon it. We don't reform it. We abandon it and we restore what God actually reveals in the first place. Man, a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, a lot of the things that we find the modern church doing have no place in Scripture. They're not there. It's not what God actually reveals. It's a bunch of traditions, and when we see that some traditions are wrong, and then hang on to the rest, well, we've given up, yes, some of man's ways, some of the inaccurate traditions that man has given us. But what we're left with is not what we're looking for. So my simple challenge as we consider these things is to consider the difference between restoration and actually restoring God's ways versus trying to reform something. Okay, again, it's not your life plus Jesus, right? It's you abandon your life and you start with him and you allow him to build you a new life. And the point is, there's three problems that come up, which is presupposition, tradition, and pride. Guys, we're human. I've been wrong most of my life because it took me 2/3 of my life before I even was exposed to the truth. I'm not beyond saying, hey, I don't know everything. I'm not beyond saying I've been wrong and I will be wrong again. But let's be willing to doubt the tradition and be willing to be aware of presuppositions. If we assume a bunch of things are already true, we're never going to test them. If we assume that because somebody's got degrees or a title or a pulpit or a podium, that they know, what they're talking about, and we just take that as a truth and we don't doubt what they say, we're going to wind up in some bad situations. There's only one who can never lead us astray. And I'm not him. Okay? See what God actually says. Start there. And restore the actual faith he was trying to pass on from the foundation of the earth, ever since mankind chose to sin against him. So anyway, guys, hopefully this illustration helps a little bit. And like I said, to his credit, there was good things that Martin Luther did. I'm not denying that. Howsoever, a lot of man-made traditions and ungodly things got carried over from the Catholic Church. I'm also not denying that. So just letting you know, this is not what I'm looking for. And I don't think it's what God's looking for either. Be blessed. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.